Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hi, my name's Yvette and I'm an alcoholic. Hi. Well, happy birthday to everyone who took a cake. I think that's great, especially Al. I've known Al a long time. And I asked him to be my sponsor tonight. No. But you know, it was interesting when I got here. Like, I've never been to this meeting before, and I came down the parking lot ramp, and I'm wondering where it is, and I see this group of people gathered, you know, having coffee and smoking, and I just thought, that's got to be it, you know. And of course, I followed the crowd, and here I am. And it's great because, like, AA is just comforting, you know. There's just like, there's things you just know to expect, you know. I mean, I kind of was looking for the literature, you know, where's the big book and all that. And I saw these banners with the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. And anyway, it's great to be here. I'm grateful to be standing here and to share with you where I came from and what's happened to me, because I believe that anytime we're of service in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're a useful alcoholic. I think actually any of us sitting here tonight is a useful alcoholic, just by the mere fact that we're sitting here and we're sober, and somebody else walks in here and they see that we're here and we're sober, you know, and it's just a miracle. By all natural laws, I should have been dead. You know, I took lethal combinations. I mentioned drugs because I took them. And the reason I took them was to get loaded. I took them for the same reason I drank. It doesn't matter to me what running shoes you're wearing. If you're running, you're running. And I used whatever there was to go, you know. I don't understand the concept of drug of choice, because if it was there, I chose it, you know. I mean, I've never had anybody offer me speed and say, well, do you have any Valium by any chance, you know? I'm sort of having Valium today, you know, cutting down on speed a little. Never happened, you know. I mean, if it was there, I'll take it, fine, no problem. And actually, I love taking amphetamine, speed. It was great because I like to say, you know, like, I accomplished so much, and I never got up off the couch, you know. See, there are a few speed takers here tonight. You know, I mean, that illusion, living in that illusion, you know. I mean, it's like I've always depended on my fantasy to pull me through it all, to pull me through reality. And I sort of always reinterpreted reality to fit my fantasy. And to give you a prime example of that, like when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had come from, I was living on Normal Avenue. I was on A to the totally disabled. I was labeled a paranoid schizophrenic by the state of California to get A to the totally disabled. Not that I was a paranoid schizophrenic, but I guess that's how I got money to live in the halfway house. But I left the halfway house and moved up in the world and moved to Normal Avenue. And so I wasn't working. I was unemployable. And I used to buy the cheapest wine you could find. Because to me, if you know, like, the cheaper it was, the more you could get. I have to tell you that in sobriety, I did go out once with this guy, a normie, you know, and he was like, this was a few years ago, and he was trying to impress me, first date and last. He brings me into his kitchen, you know, and he's got this, like, row of empty wine bottles that he's had over the years. And he points to one and he goes, and this one costs $200. And like, I'm supposed to be all impressed, and I'm thinking, you idiot. I mean, do you realize how many bottles of wine you could have bought for $200? I mean, I knew this man was not economically sound, you know. I mean, really. I never went out with him again. Too scary. So anyway, I was drinking this like super cheap wine, and my social life consisted of going to the Suicide Prevention Center drop-in group because I was highly suicidal. And then I got a hold of the 20 questions. And one of the questions said, you know, has drinking caused you financial difficulties? I'm paraphrasing here. And I sort of reinterpreted this to fit my fantasy, see? And I reinterpreted the question to read, do you have enough money to buy the booze? See, that was my concept of a financial difficulty. And I answered, no problem. I mean, when you're buying the cheapest wine available, plus you're on all these drugs, I mean, what's the problem here? It didn't dawn on me that I didn't have a job. When it came to answer, has drinking caused you problems in the job area, I answered no, because I don't have a job. How could I have job problems? See? And so this head was trying to get me through life until I got here. Needless to say, I wasn't doing too good of a job. I was failing miserably. And I come from a European background. I was born in France, and we moved to Canada when I was 3. And then we moved to New York when I was 6, and I learned how to speak English at the age of 6. And I felt different. I would be in a store, and my mother would be speaking French to me across the room, and I would feel so embarrassed, and I hated it, and I wanted to be like everyone else at that time, and I really felt different, and I felt different because I was different, and those two things sort of like never, coincide, because it's like that's reality. So that's something I don't really consider when I'm assessing a situation. And so anyway, I grew up in New York until about the age of 13, and I went to Catholic school, and I went to Catholic school where they had these nuns that, black belt nuns, and my concept of that experience was that I was going to hell at 7. And I want you to know I dreaded turning 8, because I knew that it wasn't worth living. I mean, I was going to hell, and because I learned that you don't have to commit a sin, all you have to do is think about it. And, you tell that to a kid with an alcoholic personality, and like, I'm thinking my thoughts at 7 are going to get me to hell. And I remember the nuns explaining to us the difference between, there's 2 kinds of sins in Catholicism. One is a venial sin, which is like a misdemeanor. And then there's the mortal sin, which is like the felony, okay? So you're like 7 years old, and you go through the sacrament, you wear this little white communion dress and everything, and the nuns told me that if you commit a venial sin, it's like a little black spot on your communion dress. But if you commit a mortal sin, your whole dress turns black. I mean, forget it. I was going to hell in a handbasket, and I dreaded turning 8. I mean, what was the point? So that was my experience with that. And it wasn't too exciting. I went on to Catholic high school and then to Catholic college, and because I hated change. And there's really no other reason. When I was a senior in high school, it was a senior privilege to take this class on sex education taught by a nun. And so, I didn't know much when I left high school, I have to tell you. And when I was 15 years old, 2 significant things happened. One is that I started committing suicide. And for me, it was like a way to communicate. I didn't have any words. I was raised in a family that didn't believe in feelings, so we sort of ignored them. And so the only way that I had of expressing myself were through these violent acts towards myself, and also through writing this morbid poetry. And I was addicted to writing morbid poetry. I started to do that. My first poem was in French, and it was called Life is Sad and Melancholic. and I wrote it really quickly, and my French teacher encouraged me to keep writing. And I continued to keep writing all this horrible, depressing, morbid stuff, you know. And I thought it was my mission in life to enlighten the happy people, you know. Because if you were happy, you were not dealing with reality. You know, reality sucks, wake up and be miserable. And that was my message, you know. And I gave it to anyone who would listen. I'd give it to you even if you didn't listen, didn't matter. And so that's what I did, and I continued to do that. And I went to Catholic college, which is where I met this girl who was hip, slick, and cool from New York. She was one of my roommates, and she knew how to smoke dope, she knew how to hitchhike, and she knew how to shoplift, and I wanted what she had. And I got it, and I learned real quick, and I have a more innocent face, so she was the one that would distract the sales lady while I would, you know, rip things off and walk out of the store. And I mean, I got busted for Christmas shoplifting, actually. And I spent December 24th, when I was 19, in jail. You know, that day I was released. I was there overnight. They wouldn't let me have matches for my cigarettes because I attempted suicide. I had ripped off this Victorian dress that had this pink sash, and when this woman who was this security guard, I guess, or an officer, I'm not sure, but she started to tell me and my friend that we would never amount to anything. And she said, you know, that we're going to have police records, and you can't get a job with police records, you know, and no government jobs or anything like that. And she's going on, and like my head just ran with it. And I just had this flashing thought, oh my God, I'll never be able to work in a library. I never wanted to work in a library. I don't even know why that came to my mind, but that thought was the motivation for me to attempt suicide. So I grabbed the pink sash and started choking myself, gagging on the floor. You know, these security cops jump on top of me, handcuff my wrists and my ankles, take me to jail. They won't let me have matches for my cigarettes. And I was crying so hysterically, they finally took me out of my cell and put me in with Monique so I'd shut up, you know. And so that was my experience at 19. I got out of jail, was sentenced to live at home, which gives you an idea of my home life. And proceeded to shoplift for the next 7 years. And towards the end, it was one of the few things I had left to look forward to. And it was pretty pathetic, but when I got sober, I have to tell you that the obsession was instantly removed. It took me the first year of sobriety to go into a store and not feel like somebody was watching me or was going to arrest me, you know, and I was just always like terrified of that. And if I was holding an item that I was going to pay for, I would hold it out so that they would see it and know I wasn't going to steal it, you know, and I've not had to do that. And it's just a miracle that it was like removed, you know. When I was out there drinking and using drugs, you know, it was like the time of the hippies, and I kind of like wanted to become a hippie, so I used to wear uniforms under my, I used to wear love beads under my green and gray uniform, and I kind of was like a closet hippie, and I was just waiting to, like, you know, go out there and like join the love-ins and stuff. But you know, I mean, I come from a strict Catholic background, and you know, I wasn't into all this free love kind of stuff, so I just didn't fit in. But I liked, you know, getting loaded and getting out of it, and I did all that, and I hitchhiked in the middle of the night, and it's a wonder that I did not get killed. Not just, you know, not to mention the lethal combination of drugs and alcohol, but the incredibly dangerous situations that I placed myself in, completely oblivious that it was a dangerous situation. It's like I didn't care, it didn't matter, you know, and I just went through life sort of in this way that was like completely foreign to being human, you know. I didn't know how to be a human being among human beings. I didn't know how to live life. I had no idea what life was, and it frightened me. And I come from to delve into my past, which I have no interest in doing that from a podium in terms of all, you know, the details and everything. But, you know, I do come from a past that was, that had some experiences that were severely damaging to me, and that contributed a lot to my behavior, which I did not understand at the time, nor that I have a clue of what anything was about, you know, because I was so busy being out of it. It was like survival. You know, it was interesting. It was like even these suicide attempts that I had were almost like survival, you know. But I never really wanted to die, you know. I sort of wanted to die temporarily, you know, like for about a week until things like, you know, the bad stuff went away, and then I could just come back. But it didn't happen that way. And this disease gets progressively worse. This disease was running my life. This disease was my higher power. It ruled everything that I did. I attempted to go to school, to college. It took me 4 years to complete 1 year of college, because every time that I would be in school, like after a while, you know, it's like the drinking and the drugging would all catch up. It never occurred to me to quit school. I mean, not to quit school. That's what I did, to quit drinking so I can continue going to school. It never occurred to me to do that. You know, it's like I was so into the disease that I had no idea that it was my higher power. And I did realize one night that I was a drug addict. And that's when I realized there was only one thing left to do, and that's get more drugs, you know. And it never occurred to me, oh my God, I have a problem, you know, I need to seek help, I need counseling or whatever. No, never occurred to me. You know, I never even heard of Alcoholics Anonymous until I got here. I had no idea what Alcoholics Anonymous was. I certainly didn't think I belonged here. And here I am, you know, and it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. The disease got progressively worse. I started making the rounds of psychiatrists and psychologists, hospitals for suicide attempts. I took LSD and tried to jump off a building once to prove I could fly, and was caught just as I was about to jump off. I continued to take LSD even though I never had a good trip. I don't know why I kept doing that. And, but I didn't take that much of it. And to give you an idea of the relationships that I had my first serious relationship when I was 20, and we used to steal presents for each other. And now, I was not the domestic type. You see, my mother never did anything. She just stayed at home and cooked and cleaned and complained and was suicidal. And I was told that it was my responsibility to keep my mother happy because I was the oldest of the 3 kids. And she was like leaving the house saying she was going to throw herself in the ocean and she wouldn't come back for like an hour or whatever. So I was failing miserably at this. And I connected that, you know, her life, being this housewife, made her suicidal. I didn't want it. And so I made sure that I would never be domestic. You know, like when the house, I mean, like when the dishes got too dirty, I stopped eating. And when the clothes got too dirty, I stole new ones. I did go to the laundromat once, 8 washers I had going. It was such a traumatic experience. I vowed I would never do that again. And when the house got too dirty, I moved, you know. And I moved a lot. And so anyway, you know, I didn't want to get sentenced to the kitchen prison, and so this guy steals a casserole for me, and I panicked. I thought, uh-oh, he's getting these ideas in his head, you know, and he assured me that he just needed something with a lid for the surprise. And when I lifted the lid, spelled out in white amphetamines were the words, "I love you." And I was touched, you know. I really thought that was so thoughtful, you know. He knew I liked speed, and didn't buy me any of these dumb roses or whatever, you know, like got something useful. And he used to think I was Alice in Wonderland, and so did I actually, so. But anyway, that relationship didn't last, and he was actually a very nice person. And so that gives you an idea of, you know, my relationship. So anything that was life-affirming, I was a failure at. I didn't really like working. I kind of, you know, wound up on unemployment a lot, never really could complete anything in the job area or really go forward anywhere. I couldn't really have relationships because I wasn't even there for myself, so I really couldn't be there for anybody else. And I didn't like kids, or so I thought. And all of these things I have come to find out in sobriety are based on lies and are based on this disease, you know, that doesn't allow me to have anything. And so in sobriety, when the drugs and the alcohol were clearing out of my system and I was coming to, and sobriety was starting to take over my life, all these things that I thought I never wanted, I started to want, you know, and it was like I was opening up to life. I mean, the thing that happened to me in sobriety was the very thing I was trying to avoid, and that was life. And so I had to learn how to have a life here. I didn't come here to get my life back because I didn't have one to get back. And I came here, like a friend of mine likes to say, when she got here, you know, she thought, God, low self-esteem is a step up, you know, and I relate to that because, you know, when you have none, if you figure low, that is a step up. And I came here very young. I was in my 20s, and I was pretty much out of it, you know, and I actually was taken to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. It was a Thursday night in Brentwood. It was the largest meeting I've ever seen in my life. And there was a big stage in the front, and I thought that there was a nurse backstage with the alcoholics, and that all these people out here were like, you know, friends and family that were kind of waiting for their sick relatives. And I was waiting for the nurse to come and get me, and she didn't come. But I remember a man acknowledging a year of sobriety, and I was shocked. I could not believe that anybody would want to stay sober given the condition of this world. You know, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was shocked. I always thought the solution was finding the right combination of drugs and alcohol, but you know, if you're an alcoholic, that doesn't work, because once you think you found it, you've got to make it better, and it gets all screwed up, you know. So it's impossible. And so I kept coming back to meetings. Now, I had been diagnosed, like I said, a paranoid schizophrenic, which I was not, when I was living in this halfway house. And they had sent me to a psychiatrist who labeled me a manic depressive, which also I was not. And the psychiatrist told me that she gave me 27 pills a day to take for this problem. You know, they weren't 27 different ones, but some of them like 2-3 times a day. All accumulated, I counted them once, was 27. Plus I was addicted to Valium. I was taking between 10 and 100 milligrams a day, depending on what kind of a day it was. The prescription bottle did not say take as needed, but I sort of reinterpreted it to read that way. And then there were people in the halfway house that didn't believe in taking drugs. So, you know, I helped them out, relieved them of their burden. And then at night, I would go out and buy alcohol at the corner liquor store and get drunk on top of all this stuff. And so, when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was like on all this medication, and I quit drinking, and it was like no big deal, you know. And then somebody said to me, honey, we don't take drugs in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, well, you don't understand, it's a prescription. She says, no, honey, we don't do that. And I said, well, how do you get through sobriety? You know, I couldn't believe it. I mean, no Valium, you know, and no Valium. So I was sent to a hospital, and at this hospital, I was in detox for 3 days. I had a near-death experience. The woman that took me there, Liz, was told that it was not expected that I would live through the night. I was dying, and I didn't know it. And I was malnourished. I never ate anything. I would buy that chocolate chip Pillsbury cookie dough, you know, and eat that. I mean, I didn't cook, so I never made the cookies, you know, and now they have ice cream flavors in that. I can't believe it. I was ahead of my time. And so anyway, I was dying in the hospital, and on August 31st, 1974, I was told that that was my first day of sobriety. And on August 31st, 1994, I celebrated 20 years of sobriety. Thank you. You know, and that's a miracle, because when it was time to release me from the hospital 12 days later, they decided that they might send me to Camarillo, but they figured it was just a detour and why bother. You know, that it was just a matter of time before I committed suicide anyway, so just turn me back out on the street. And that night, I was released in the morning. That night I was in an AA meeting, and I kept coming back to AA meetings, and it's the only thing I did for the first year of sobriety. You know, it was the only thing I could do, and I didn't want to do it. I itched constantly for the first year from the withdrawal from the drugs and the Valium, and everything was horrible. And I couldn't eat and I couldn't sleep in the first 30 days. The first 30 days were absolute hell. I mean, if nothing else, that'll keep me from, getting drunk again. But then again, the fact that this disease is progressive, so it's 20 years worse. And I left off at a near-death experience. Where am I going to go now, So there's just no way that I can have a drink and or take any kind of mind-altering chemicals of any kind, and I don't do that, and I have not done that in 20 years, and I have survived because of rooms like this, because of the 12 steps, because of the 12 traditions, because of the fellowship, because of the sponsors that I've had, because of being able to carry the message myself. And that's when I find out that there is that strong connection. It seems to me that that's when it's like, when you're sharing with another alcoholic, when you're sharing from the podium, when you're sharing with a sponsee, it's like you're always giving your best self. You always try to give your best self so that to help that person or to just transmit the message that Alcoholics Anonymous, carries, that unites us all. And, and the message is about life. Life did happen to me. I went back to school after a year of sobriety. I got a degree. I got a job. I learned how to go to work. I learned if you're not the boss, you're there to do what the boss thinks should be done. That's all you need to know. And that got me through a job, which later turned into a career. And then I started to pursue what I really wanted, which was in my heart's desire. I've always been creative. Anything creative was the only thing I was ever interested in. And so I started to pursue the painting. Actually, Pat and Al were the people that bought my very first painting. And that was quite a while ago. And I used to do these little watercolors when I first started out. I was painting in the Santa Monica Mountains, and I kept working on this little watercolor over and over and over again. And my teacher, I called him up and I said, you know what, I don't think I have any talent. I don't think I should be in this class. And he said, well, bring me some stuff you've done, over the past, and we'll see, maybe you don't. So I brought him these poetry books that I had illustrated and did these paintings in when I was in high school. And he looks at this and he goes, you paint like this and you think you have no talent? Why? Well, I didn't have a podium handy, so I couldn't exactly explain it, but he did, encourage me to keep painting, and so I did, and I would bring them up and put them in the trunk of my car, because we would meet at all these, park sites and stuff, and just in case somebody else walked by, so I could cover the lid real quick, and last year in March, I was in a group exhibit at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art in the rental gallery, and 2 of my pieces were 8 feet by 10 feet. And one of them actually was rented along with another one, which is still at this company, And so I got from here to way up here, and prices got higher. And your painting is worth a lot more now, I want you to know. You've made a good investment. Oh, that's my Mickey Mouse watch. I set it so that I would know when it's over. It's great. It's this alarm and it plays the Mickey Mouse theme. Anyway, to continue here on this path of sobriety, I started my own business, so now I'm the boss. And I've had it for about 6 years. I work out of my home, and it's related to the motion picture industry, which I used to work in. Well, I guess I still do. And I went back to school, and I got my BFA. And I've been working at, I have the reason I have this is the opportunity to make up my own hours so that I can paint. I thought that I had to wait until I was, like Grandma Moses before I could paint. And I'm doing it now, and I have that opportunity to do that now. And it took me a while, like in sobriety, when I was working on a regular job and I was making good money, and I would take these vacations. And to me, a vacation was going somewhere to paint. And so I went to Italy and painted from the country for a couple of weeks all over. And then I went to England to paint for 3 weeks and from the country. And when I came back, I thought, you know, for 3 weeks, every day, on a daily basis, I have to say that I had that sense of joy and happiness that was constant. It wasn't like, you know, a day a week or a couple of days a week or whatever. It was just every day. And I'd been sober long enough at that point to come to the place where I felt that it was okay to give that to myself with God's help, you know, and that I pursued that. And that's when I quit my job, started my business, and it all came into place. You know, I really found out that when I take an action, when I take the risk, you know, that the universe supports me, my higher power supports me, and people just show up, like these angels show up in my life and guide me to where I'm supposed to go. And I got married in sobriety in 1990. I graduated, got my BFA in May of 1990, and then in June of 1990 I got married. I'm divorced now. So I guess I'm just like a lot of people, but that's okay, you know, because I learned a lot. I mean, it was the first time I got married, so I like to call him my practice husband because I needed the practice. And a lot of my ideas about marriage were based on fantasy, you know, and fairy tales and all of that stuff. And reality is just a whole different color. And so I had to learn that by going through the experience. We actually did try to have a baby, and that did not work out. And the divorce was final a couple of years ago in July. And now I'm looking to adopt a baby as a single parent. And I'm actually taking steps trying to make that happen, you know. And I've had this desire to have a child for years. And I don't believe that God would have given me such a strong desire in my heart if it were not God's will. So I pray that, you know, the situation like unfolds, that is for my highest good and the highest good of the child, wherever that child may be or whoever that child may be. I don't really know at this point. You know, trying to work as hard as I can to save as much money as I can. One option that I do have is to go to China and adopt a baby girl because they don't want them there, and these baby girls have no future. And so that's something that I could do, but I need a lot of money to be able to do that, which I do not have at the present moment. And so anyway, I'm like taking steps, you know, and like opening myself up to that, and I don't know where this child is going to come from, probably through Alcoholics Anonymous, because I have to tell you, everything that's ever come to me has been through Alcoholics Anonymous, no matter what. And I've come to find out that it doesn't matter where it comes from. What matters is that I do the footwork, because if I start attaching results to my footwork, I'm in bad trouble, because that just gives me tunnel vision, and it doesn't allow for the best to happen, you know, because with the kind of head that I have, I will, like, you know, here's the best, and I'll veer over there, demanding second best. And that's not where I belong. You know, it's like God offers me the ocean, and I can either go there with a teaspoon or a bucket, you know, and take whatever it is that's there, you know. But if I have a bucket, then there's a lot more to take care of. There's a lot more maintenance and all of that. And that's what I want in my life. You know, I want my life to be a rich life. And it is a rich life. I mean, these 20 years have been all about growing up in AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is my family, is my parents, you know, the parents that I never had, who never could give me the guidance that all of you have given me here. And I keep coming back because I have no place else to go. That's the reason I kept coming back from the beginning, because I have no place else to go. I feel that I'm very fortunate in terms of having had all these fancy labels and all of that stuff, and you know, practically dying, because there's nothing left for me to think about that, you know, maybe it's this or maybe it's that or whatever, because it isn't. It's here. You know, I have a disease, and it's called alcoholism, and it's a killer disease, and it's waiting always, and it requires maintenance always. And I still have that attitude towards Alcoholics Anonymous, which I pray I will have till my dying day. that this excitement to come into these rooms, you know, this like knowing that something's happening here, you know, it just like breathes energy into the very cells of my being. And I have really come here and learned about love. I didn't know anything about love. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I also didn't know anything about God. I came here with this concept of a Catholic God that I was brought up with. It may not be anybody else's concept, you know, who was brought up in Catholicism. It's just mine, that's all. It's just mine. And that concept was not working for me. And I heard somebody in AA say that God is love, and love is action. And if you're practicing loving actions, you're practicing the presence of God. And since that time, I have gone around to going to gurus and ashrams and getting smashed in the face with peacock feathers, which did nothing but make me sneeze. It was not enlightening. And to, you know, even going to a Catholic church, and that was okay. And come right back around to the very simple concept, you know, that God is love, love is action, and if I'm practicing loving actions, I'm practicing the presence of God. And that's it, you know. And it's like, just to give you an example, I mean, I'm an animal lover. I have 6 pets. I just got a new baby bunny. Her name is Rosemary. She's really cute. And I have a dog, 3 cats, and a turtle. And when I was a kid, I used to want to own a zoo, but, you know, this is it. I mean, I have a nice big house, and, you know, everybody's fine, but this is it for now. But anyway, when I take my dog out for a walk, like, I noticed there was this rabbit, and he was in this cage outside by himself day and night, and had kind of mesh wiring on the bottom of the cage, so that all night this poor bunny had no place for shelter. There was cold air coming in underneath, you know, the cage. And I felt really bad, and I thought, what am I going to do? So I came home the next day, that night actually, and I wrote a card saying, dear caretakers, you know, I'm really having a hard time in this little cage, and it would be really nice if you'd put a box in here for me. And so I kind of wrote it from the POV of the bunny, and put this little note on this cage, you know. And last night when I drove by, I found there was a box in there, you know, and that was an experience of God, you know. I mean, that's what it was. And it was like I saw this Thanksgiving night. It made my whole Thanksgiving. It may be just a simple thing, but it just really did, like, to know that, you know, I was able to have an effect that actually helped this, you know, helpless creature. And so I'm really pretty excited about what's going on in my life. I feel like after 20 years, it's like the best is yet to come, and that it's like this is a new beginning, you know, and I'm trudging ahead. And the greatest event in my life so far is the same one that started 20 years ago on August 31st. And I hope to God that it continues to be. I really didn't feel like coming tonight, you know. I was tired and I have work to do and all of that. But if I don't put AA first, if AA is not my priority, you know, then I stand to lose everything else. And everything else is nowhere near as important as Alcoholics Anonymous. And I really treasure Alcoholics Anonymous. I trust and respect Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, I really do. And I really thank you for allowing me to come here and share with you, especially this being the holiday time, and really wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. I mean, we have something to be grateful for every day, whether it's Thanksgiving or not, you know. And I really do thank you very much.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control is connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.